Hello everyone, this is a recording from my gameplay of Lost Vikings in Rank 1 on Cursed Hollow. I've been asked to show some in-depth details about why I do what I do and to just cover the basics, so I will try to do it as best as I can. In this video there is a lot of movement and switching of screens, which is why some viewers found it hard to follow. So I will be going from the bare bone basics to the high end stuff from my perspective. So why I did some choices, how I approach the game, my talent choices, the teammates, everything starting from now. So as you can see, every Viking has a number above them, which is how you can move them with your hotkeys. So number 1, 2, and 3 will select the Viking you want. 1 is for Olaf, 2 is for Balog, and 3 is for Eric. If you double click it, your camera will move to them. And here is a display what happens if you double click and then hold number 3. It is a bit too stuttery, so I prefer to use space as I show it here. So you just move and hold space to follow your guy in a smoother fashion. I usually play them from the map, so I placed every one in their lanes and push them forward by going 1, 2, 3 and clicking near the towers. You can play them from the map, but you have to set up the settings so you don't click through it. Otherwise, they will not go where you want them on the map, but where it's pointing on the screen that you're viewing right now. As far as gameplay goes for the early game, you want to start this by keeping them safe, so you never get cheesed at level 1. You want to be able to soak the lanes at all times. Preferably, you would like your team to focus on one lane, and you can either do 2 Vikings in one lane, 1 in the other, or 1 Viking in each lane, depending on the map. Never really play them in a single lane, which would be kind of defeats the purpose. At least move 1 to scout around and take some control over the map. So the orbs are really strong on Vikings. If you can get all 3 orbs every time, you're going to be healing for a lot of health. And apart from that, most of the decisions will come from you watching the map and seeing how the enemies are positioned. If you don't see anybody, stay near your base. And by base, I mean near your towers, so you can just go behind the gate and be protected. If there is a clear view of most of them, which by most of them I would mean 4, so there's really no chance of you dying, except when there's a Nova or a Zeratul who can burst a Viking instantly. But lately, it's been getting reduced, so in those cases you would want to take a block on Olaf, so he takes 75% less damage for the first 2 auto attacks, and then you position him in a solo lane, the other 2 in another lane, and you just keep them as far away from each other as you can. So it should never be a case where both of them die at the same time. That way you will never lose the soaking power of the Vikings, and you will be able to help your team out just by passively granting them more experience. If you can, try to micro them as best as you can to add and contribute to the damage your team deals. If you are not able to do that, just focus on soaking the lanes, and then later on you can take the Viking longboat so you can team fight somewhat effectively. That way you don't really have to control all 3 of them, you just focus on the positioning of your Vikings so they don't get caught in an area with effect like Keltas's Flame Strike, and then you can use the longboat to deal some damage in teams. Here you can see how I let my team fight, yeah, separate. I'm not helping them because I know that I cannot do that much yet, and I would prefer to soak, so I focus on my lanes. I will never call off all 3 Vikings for that reason. There is an Abattoir here, but you don't really have that power to kill him at this point. When you get your spin to win, if you go for that, you are able to take him out. And when you get level 20 Fury of the Storm, that enables you to solo pretty much anybody if you have 3 Vikings together. and people don't understand that 3 Vikings are more than just 1 hero at that point, if you don't clump them up and die to an AoE skill. But even then, you can jump through those kind of skills. If you take jump, that's your W skill, which is a very strong skill on level 13. And generally, you want to never, you don't want to tunnel vision with Vikings. You always want to be clicking them on the map, and there's a trick that you can do where you press the A button or however you assigned your attack command on the map, and they will go push the wave, or if there is nobody there, they will try to attack the first target in their sight. So you don't have to manually look at them, you can just push the waves like that if your micro is not up to par. So at that point, you just want to be careful to not let your Vikings walk into towers. So when you see them taking damage, it will flash, and there's going to be a sound, and you can always watch next to your portrait how their HP is. If you see bigger dips in it, that's probably something that you should check out. So you want to double click the Viking with 1, 2, or 3, and then you can move him to safety. It's not really that bad if you die as Vikings. You just never want to die in 2 lanes that are not covered. You can afford to die in 1 lane, but you have to be able to give your team the benefit of at least an extra soaked lane due to the Vikings, or you are not contributing to the soak and to the team fight. In that case, you might as well be playing a single hero because you just damaged your team fight potential for nothing, and it is not something to be worried about. Everybody sucks at Vikings when they start them. This is a very different concept for a MOBA. If you played StarCraft or any strategy game with control groups, you might be at home with them, but I've seen a lot of pro players struggle with basic Viking control. I'm not a pro player, I'm just having fun with them, and I've been having good results, especially in rank 1 play, where it is not really often that you're going to see a player who can actually control the map with Vikings. And I'm pretty sick when I think I am getting to the point where my Vikings can basically force the team into never team fighting. In this game particularly, they have a Nutter and a Joanna, and my first impulse was, okay, this is a map that is alright for Vikings, but their team fight is insane, and I would never pick a weak hero that relies on team fighting at this point, so I'm just gonna take the hero that I enjoy and can disrupt their team fight potential by just not allowing them to move in. Here is a nice way to block me, but it didn't work. He almost managed to just shut me down and I wouldn't be able to move away. Mostly I try to stay and soak until we reach level 10, which we did a few moments ago. We are already a bit ahead, and as soon as people start moving to fight for objectives is when Vikings will shine. Here on the top you saw for a moment that I was alone against 2, which is normally a bad thing, but I still get the soak, so even if they take the towers, it is not that awful. We are not losing the experience from the creeps that they pushed in. And if you see, for example, in the middle, you see Balog, I sent him back to heal because Muradin is soaking. So there's no need for you to stay until a Viking dies. You can just send him back if you see that your teammates are covering the lane. The XP experience distribution will show you that you're benefiting your team, but if there is 1 person in a lane, that's enough. You're not getting more experience for 2 heroes in a lane, even though if it counts it in the scoreboard. So if you have something like, I think not in this one, but in a game after, I had 65k experience contribution and my teammates had around 3 to 5k, and that's realistically, I would say 70% of that was my contribution. The rest was somebody else with me in the lane. So it's a bit deceptive, but not by much. You can still notice a considerable amount of aid you give to your team by playing Vikings. With Eric, I like to take his swiftness that heals him and gives him 10% move speed. I find him to be the best teamfight one and scouter, so he's really safe. He can kite people, you can 1v1 Murkies easily, force them to never proc their pufferfish. He has a quick enough attack speed. And with Baylog and Olaf, as the game goes on, I like to put them in the same lane, because they can take out a hero that is not a high HP tank. Found out that Tyrael is able to solo all 3 Vikings, which is unfortunate, but not many heroes can do that. And when you reach the point where your team is always fighting and there are objectives that are far apart from the team fight, you can send one of your Vikings to the objective and keep an eye out on your bribery, which is your E, which gains stacks when you kill minions. So I took a jump here just to be able to escape Keltas's living bomb. What I was talking about was you always would like to use your stacks of bribery on the giants or the siege minions depending on the map. So there are those Diablo spear throwers, I'm not sure what their official name is, but as you can see here, one Viking is on the bottom. Let's get back to the game. I mean, I was pushing with Eric, and now I'm trying to chase down Zagara with the 3 of my Vikings. I almost took her out, and here I'm just gonna reposition them so they live. You can micro them individually or as a group. Individually will give you the better result, but if you can't, moving them as a group is okay. And then when you see one of them getting low, you can just press his hotkey and move him back and just ignore the rest until they're low again, and then do the same with them. You can press B to base with the individual Viking. Just be careful not to select everybody with, yeah, I didn't mention this, but hotkey number 4, so number 4 on your keyboard will select all of them. Don't use that if you've assigned one Viking to, for example, take the cursed objective, or assigned him to go back to base, because that will stop the action and you might never be able to take an objective again before the enemy team comes. For example, here, if you are taking the Raven's favor, you will not be able to make that mistake more than once, I guess, because it's a lot of time that you wasted when you press it like that. So here I had enough for 1 with Olaf, I had enough for 1 bribery, so I'm just taking the other, because Olaf is strong enough to do that. Baylog is very strong too, but I kept him with my team in this case, because there was a fight going on in the middle and the boss is pushing on the bottom. I'm just waiting with Eric to see if anybody's going to come, but they didn't, so I move in, just a bit deceptively there. So here I made a mistake, but I noticed it, that there was no ping and no blue minion there, so I went back to pick them up with Olaf, and now I'm going to push the lane with them. Baylog I'm controlling him here just to add to the damage of my team. When I see that some of my Vikings has stopped, I press A, or I just click on the map by double clicking to move them to attack, get in range. Now we can see that on the left side of the screen I can see their healths and nobody's dipping, so I don't have to pay that much attention to what he's doing on the bottom since Zagara is not targeting him. But I see that Olaf is taking damage and Belloc was taking some incremental damage, but I figured out it was the tower and I was correct, so I could move him back. Top lane, you see Olaf has taken quite a bit of damage, but he's starting to heal up, so that was a passive thing, there was no hero there. And I keep moving to take their golems when I have the stacks, which is a cute little move that Eric can do, since he's very fast and you don't really have to worry about dying with him. You can use your Y move for mount, which gives you increased movement speed. I think it's 50% or 60, I think 50. And it is one way to escape, the other is jump. So in combination, you should be very safe to just face check everything with him. And if he dies, it's not that big of a deal. It's just one Viking. It's a third of a per hero. And you can always play again. Play again is something that I will go in detail later on. It is just a skill that revives your Vikings at the location of the Viking that uses it. If there is one Viking alive, it will only spawn. It will spawn them all at the same location. These minions are very strong. I'm gonna die with my Olaf there. I didn't pay attention to him, and that's the siege minions of Abattoir are really a problem. If you can, try not to pick Vikings versus Abattoir because it requires a lot more awareness, since he can just pop up anywhere and kill you with mines or set up mines for you to passively walk in when you move click them. And as you can see, I'm moving in with Eric on the bottom again. Olaf was dead, so he's doing nothing. And here I try to keep my Balog alive, but it's not really that big of a deal, because my goal here would be to bait them into killing him so I can spawn all three bottom with full HP. But I went back since I saw there was really no way they would do that. Or I would just have to be too aggressive and walk into a tower for that to happen. So here I just pressure from behind. I almost get Kel'Thas, but he pops his arcane shield, so I have to back away. And as you see, jump is very useful at situations like this. I've sent Balog top to protect our lanes and get the experience. I want to hit level 20, and even though there's siege minions from Abattoir, he can stay behind them and they won't focus him. You can see where my Eric is near the golems of my enemy's team. I'm just positioning him there to keep pushing when I can see the opportunity. So when they go for top for the tribute, I can just move in the middle, and he's very safe to do so. I can send the other two to help my team while he pushes middle, which forces them to either protect their middle lane or fight at disadvantage. So here we can see that they are responding to the tribute, and there is nobody protecting their lane. So I see Eric's taking damage. That was the game's ping. Nobody picked me there. So you can always keep an eye out when the game tells you that you're taking unnecessary damage. Olaf dies again, so I can here use play again. Everybody gets there. Vikings are healed, and I can take this tower. And unfortunately, it's a bit early, so it's hard to push when your minions are one-shotted by the Nexus, I think. Core is correct. So bribery again, get the bonus creatures, and I will just think about pushing, but I decide not to. Go take my own golems, giants, not golems, giants. And the other two I'm thinking about just positioning somewhere where it's safe. So I go into the bushes. I decide to send Bell on top, while Olaf is in the middle, but going for giants. So both of them are probably I sent them here. Oh, right. Two of them are sent for the boss, so they can fend it off and deal some damage. And I put Eric in the middle just to push the lane. Then I see that there's people coming for him, so I try to move him away, but it's a bit late. And he dies, of course. He's an easy target, so. Then I see that there's a tribute spawning, and I will keep Balog here and move Olaf to the tribute just for the vision, but we are too far away for that one, so I decide not to. And he can still keep pushing. At this point, you're not really giving your team anything by splitting up and being the pro soaker that the Vikings are, since level 20 has been reached and incremental buffs are not important as much as they are pre-level 10, which is also something that Blizzard is about to patch, so there will be even less difference between levels apart from the talent choice points. So here you want a team fight. At this point, if you can send two Vikings in, and one should be a bit apart, so you can use play again. So you don't want to get in situations where all three die at the same time or very close to each other, which would disable your hero power completely, and at that point you might as well have gone for another one, which is longbow trade. There's Abattoir on their team, so I'm keeping one Viking, trying to cover up for our lack of defense. And since Eric is still here, I can just keep them both in the middle, force his spawned minions to not take our base, and since I am level 20, I have the Fury of the Storm, which enables you to clear with any of the Vikings. It splits the damage, it deals 200 to the primary and something a bit less to the secondary targets. Next to him, it's a splash damage attack. And from here on out, you want to keep with your team, but when you see a team fight happening, always send one Viking or two Vikings, preferably one, to a different lane just to pressure the game. if you see that your team has taken down forts, so on the bottom you see there's only the top fort left. So at that point, they're going to be sieged by your siege minions, and you can always send either one Viking to the middle and the bottom by microing, or just two Vikings to each lane, so it's easier. But you're going to damage your team fight like that, even though it's probably going to be worth it if your team can survive. So here, I'm sending my Vikings to the bottom lane and to the middle lane, as I was talking before, because there's no fort there and we can pressure it easier. At this point, I'm a bit lazy. I have this problem that I think it's good enough, so I've stopped microing, but I'm working on that. So they're gonna die, and I'm gonna take this again, just spawn all Vikings there. I waited for him to die because I wanted to create all three. And as you can see, the damage they deal is pretty nice, so it's very easy to take. And here through the efforts of my team and the pushing I've done through this whole game, I was able to, and we were able to take half of their core's HP. And here I make a decision to try to force them to protect their base, since they have a stronger team fight and most of them are alive. After I see that there's no way I can defend this, which is when Zagara comes, so I escape this fight. I try to prevent some more because my team is following, but at this point I really understand that the only way we can team fight is by having me push side lanes and forcing them to protect their base, since there's two lanes open. Here you can see a good use of one Viking who can just take the tribute for free, which is why I always recommend that, and that's how we basically stopped their final pushes by taking another tribute, so we are safe for another 2 rounds, even though they were in the better position for this tribute. So they're pushing in on us and they have the advantage by having more coordinated team play. Here I come to help my team, I try to do my best, but the Phoenix targets me unfortunately, and it takes a lot of my Vikings HP out. They have an Abatur which constantly protects their team, they have shields, and I am unable to do much. My Eric dies without me noticing, and here is where I realize either we push the bottom lane or they just free win. So I immediately try to move to the bottom, but I don't want to make it too obvious, so I just ping him here. They use heroic here from Uther. I just stay until I see that they're leaving, and I pop his level 20 shield. The bottom is pushing hard, so they're probably backing off, and this is the point where I can just move them forward now. So I will do that. I will move them all forward. I will not move Baylog since he's visible. I am pushing with him normally as I would with standard Vikings, and now I see that this is a free pickup since they're taking the boss, and of course boss is a big priority for them. They know that if they get the boss they can just push and win, and we don't have our boss at this point. So it is a close game and it is a hard decision to make, but I made this decision a few moments ago where I realized that our team fighting is much worse than theirs. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily because I picked Vikings, it's just that they fought better, they were responding to each other more fluidly, and it showed through the team fights, no matter how bad or good the Vikings could have been in the fights. And here, instead of going with the boss, they decide to fight with my one Viking, which is perfect, bought us time. So I was still taking the top here. Oh, there was a problem with my screen. Okay, never mind. We're back, and here I push a bit sneakily with one Viking, and I see that Abatur is able to fend me off, but as soon as the golem drops, I will be moving all my Vikings bottom, and let's see how that plays out here. So as you can see, they see that our boss is alive, so they are gonna try to contest it, and they will ignore my Eric since they have an Abatur. So here's the fight happening. I will send my Vikings in, they are gonna die, and then 3 Vikings are gonna be in their base. So yeah, I got hit there. It's a very hard thing to do against Avatar. As you can see, he just cleared our entire wave there. It's like I wasn't able to push in. Here my Vikings die, and I just create them all at their base. And we just push in, and again the minions are cleared, so my Vikings are taking the damage, and it's not that useful, but as you can see, they've soaked enough for us to start damaging their core more seriously. And here I see that Muradin is doing well. He's able to damage a lot of the core, but then he dies. And the core is still taking damage, so I'm just pressuring it, hoping that they will not finish us off, even though everybody's dead, which is what they should have done. But Zagara and another Abator is not important, but Zagara was bottom and not pushing, so that's great. And here I see a tribute. I think it's free, so I just rush to it, use my Eric's speed to take another tribute, which would end up damaging their base a lot, but they are responding to it properly this time, and they have our boss with them, so I move towards the boss, then I quickly, well, not that quickly, but quick enough, I realize that it's not gonna work. I need to just turn my direction 180 and go to their base, which is what I do here. I just rush to their base, I sprint, and I go for it. So I see that my Vikings are resurrecting, but I press this to spawn them here anyway. You see that Olaf was alive, but he still teleported to me, which is a great use of this talent too, if you need to teleport. And now we base race. The advantage is that we have the better situation on the map due to our constant pressure that we managed to do, and especially how we took down the forts. So Zagara, double Zagara, pretty good at clearing, but it is hard to protect from these kinds of this kind of pressure. So as you can see, we just burst their base down, and that's how it goes. It was a close game. We ended up with 14 health on our base, but I would say it was how it was supposed to go when you pressure with the Vikings. It could have gone much more smoothly, but as far as an example of what the Vikings are good for, this would be a pretty nice one. Thank you for watching, and until next time, this has been Dr. Lano and one of my commentaries in Rank 1 game.